Coming to you live from Browns headquarters in Berea, Ohio, this is Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Here are your hosts, Beau Bishop and Nathan Zegura.
You guys ready?
Oh, sure.
You're up.
Let's do it live on a Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is the great Gibbe. How you doing, buddy?
You dude, it's a Friday. Let's go. We made it through the week.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit longer of a week than I thought we were going to have, but we've made it, and let's get to the weekend. Let's go.
I'll tell you, I don't know what would have happened in the larger sports talk, sports dialogue week. I'm not sure what would have happened if Aaron Rodgers didn't happen, and if Tom Wilson, who nobody knew who he was unless you were a hockey fan until middle of the week, didn't decide to fight the New York Rangers. Like, those two things have kind of kept the week afloat from a sports standpoint. And you ran this bite yesterday, and I didn't see the full exchange. You talked about it, the Schefter-Patrick exchange.
Yeah, little minor exchange. I went back and listened to it.
From what I could tell of it, Schefter, I got to be careful here. What I can tell of it, Schefter basically felt like if I don't do this, somebody else is going to beat me to it. Is that it? Like, it started coming out of the play-by-play guy of the Vikings. He claims that he was hearing it. I contend that, and I stand by my theory, that it's the 49ers that got this out there because they were starting to look foolish and everyone was questioning them, and they said, hey, we're not going to have that. We're not going to have that. This is what happened. Rodgers' people told us to call the Packers. But it started in the morning with that play-by-play voice for the Vikings, and then it went to Pro Football Talk, I think, next. I think Florio put it out, and then Schefter bombed it on the day of the draft and basically acknowledges that there wasn't in his – if I'm mischaracterizing this, tell me. In his conversation with Dan Patrick, he did not –
Gibbs, you there? Hello? Gibbs? Anyone there? Gibbs?
Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, you're back up.
And so with all of that being said, and I don't even know if I should have said all of that, but now you know our off-season plan. You know the people you're projecting to go acquire in trades. That was, I mean, normally we say pay attention to the scores. That was me directly telling you what the Cleveland Browns are going to do this offseason, who's going to be here for camp, who could be on the block, who's getting extensions, when it's all going to get done. I know I talked for like 8 minutes straight there, Gibby. But there was a lot of information that I wanted to get to the people there in terms of our off-season plan. I don't know if I'm even authorized to say all of it, but what the heck? Throw caution to the wind on a Friday.
Absolutely.
Let's put it all out there. So I hope you guys enjoyed all that information.
Yeah, if you were watching on the stream, I had to walk away. I didn't want to be a part of it. I just end up in meetings.
So much. So much was discussed. I don't even know what was said and what wasn't. I don't know what got on air. Phone told me 4 minutes or so. So there you go. I rambled on. Gibby just left. I didn't know what happened to him.
I couldn't. You were
Live
there,
radio,
and then I could see you, and I could not hear you. So
then not.
I'm not sure what was going on.
Did we get the off-season dates in?
No, not yet. No. We were in the middle of Adam Schefter, and you were.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Let's rewind. We were basically talking. Yeah. We were talking about Schefter and
sure how he sat on it.
Yeah, how he just kind of decided to go with it.
Yeah. I think the 49ers forced his hand.
Yeah, that's where you were at when I lost you.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I think the 49ers forced his hand on that, and he felt like he had to.
I mean, does he get in trouble? Is it like
no?
It's just his
because
opinion
it's legitimate. Yeah, it is legitimate. It is. I mean, it's been corroborated by people close to Aaron Rodgers. It's just something that probably they weren't crazy about getting out. But honestly, in my view, I think the 49ers wanted to save face. So they said, hey, don't put this on us. Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. I mean, that's basically what the 49ers did. So, I think it's fine. I think it's an interesting way of acknowledging how NFL news is broken and why it's broken when it's broken, and that the timing on that was certainly interesting. And Joe Thomas, the Hoff is going to join us in about 20 minutes, has had a lot of Twitter fun with this over the last 12 hours or so. So we'll ask him to kind of clarify his view on what is going on there, because it's obviously been the story of the day. As we do get into the OBM Hot Topics, Ohio Business Machines, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns, of all the X's and O's for your office. You can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Thanks to the NFL, we do have some dates to pass along to you. Rookie minicamp will be the 14th through the 16th. That's next week. OTA off-season workouts May 25th through the 27th, June 1st through the 3rd, and June 7th through the 10th. And then mandatory minicamp will be June 15th through the 17th. And what I said to myself in my office was that the NFL, from a content and scheduling standpoint, Gibby, it's really the last 2 weeks of June and the first 3 weeks of July. That's it. That's the list. Everything else is accounted for. Yeah.
I mean, and really, we don't know what June 15th through the 17th is going to look like exactly. You know, if the NFLPA has their way, that won't exist.
No, and it's been ugly the last couple of days on that front.
Yes.
I mean, you've seen a lot of the players coming out saying, wait, so now we can't work out. And I don't know. I don't know how it's going to be. I mean, it's a mandatory minicamp. You agreed to it in the CBA. It's hard for me to imagine that it's not.
I feel like that's a finable offense, but we'll see how it all comes together here. But yeah, your OTA off-season workouts. I mean, I think we're pretty confident those are probably going to be virtual and remain virtual. What it comes down to is that week in June, and if there will be a mini camp or if there won't be a mini camp. So, I mean, right now it looks like there's going to be a rookie mini camp, but I know that the NFLPA, they've talked to the rookies and their agents. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's fine if you want to play that, if you want to do that, if you want to play that card. If you're Newsom, if you're Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and that doesn't necessarily saying lean one way or another if they would or wouldn't. It's more just has to do with where they're picked. It's a different conversation if you're a 4th-round defensive tackle or a 6th-round wide receiver on a team that's going to be really hard to make. And so each independent guy is going to have to make that decision for themselves, and it's a lot of landmines to it.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think it's a fascinating one. There was some good news today, though. This coming down here just in the last hour or so. I saw this originally in the Toledo Blade from Mike DeWine. The governor expects full capacity in stadiums in 2021. He was asked it in respect to Ohio State and theirs, but I would assume that would apply to us as well. So by him saying that, the expectation is that he expects full capacity in 2021. I would read that to believe that now the NFL would have their own rules potentially, and it could be up to individual teams how they want to do that. But my hunch would be that you would want the capacity as close to full as possible, and the governor doesn't appear, as we stand now in the middle of May, still a few months out, does not seem as if he is going to be the one standing in the way of that.
Yeah, and I would think that would mean we want full stadiums, but to get in said stadium, you will have to be vaccinated. I'm assuming that is probably going to be a rule.
I think that's fair, and I know a lot of people will push back at that and talk about civil liberties and all and freedom of choice and all these things. But I mean, for my kids to go to school, they have to prove that they're vaccinated for MMR. I mean, you have to have that. You have to have that stuff faxed into the schools. So I think that's probably the way it's going to be. And if you don't like it, then this isn't the position of the Browns, just the position of me. If you don't like it, then don't go to the games. I think that's probably the way this is going to go. It's just the reality of this situation is that's probably the way it's going to go. Is you're going to either have to show a. I mean, it's all hypothesized.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Hard to say, but maybe you have to show
it's May 7th.
Maybe you have to
Who
show
knows?
a vaccine. Yeah, it's so far away. I could see how you'd have to show negative test or something like that to get in if you're not vaccinated. But more and more people are, and the expectation from the governor is that you'll have full capacity. So I was thrilled by that because I'm prepared for it. I was preparing for it not to be, but I think that's a pretty good light at the end of the tunnel to think, hey, let's keep on the same path and we can get people in the stadium again because our fans deserve to see this team in person because it's going to be a remarkable team. And we missed out on that last year. Our players missed out of it. So much of the experience is being there. And I thought that was some great news from the governor today in terms of what that could be. Did you happen to see? I don't know. I can't tell them apart. One of the Paul guys who took the hat off of Floyd Mayweather yesterday. Did you see this going around social?
I did.
So they're from here, right? These guys, they're from here?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that confidently. Not on a Friday.
Got to be West Siders. There's no way somebody from the East Side would behave like that, Gibby. No chance.
Good for him if that's the
case. It's interesting, though, and I think this could go into our Keep It Fun, our Ohio Lottery Keep It Fun Ohio poll for today, because I was thinking to myself, Floyd Mayweather is 44 years old. So him fighting one of these guys, whatever. But they are so good at being heels. They are so good at being villains, and you have to tip your hat to them by that. Like, everything about them is so hateable. And I got to tell you, I'll probably be into this little thing, which got me thinking, like, who are the greatest heels? Who are the NFL's greatest heels? Who have been our biggest heels over the years? Roethlisberger would have to be
stupid
at the top,
John
right?
Elway.
John Elway is a fantastic heel.
Yeah.
And it's different in the terms of, John Elway isn't a jerk. He broke hearts, but not necessarily a jerk. So who would – I think those are the first two, right? Is Elway and Roethlisberger, those are the two biggest heels right out of the gates?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, are you just talking players? Because we know who the ultimate
or executives.
Well, I mean, there's
Art.
Yeah.
That's more like
there's one.
That's
there's
more
a
like
distinct leader
villain.
in the clubhouse. That's what I mean.
That's an all-out villain, though, Gibby. I mean, I guess we should probably stick to players, best player heels, and maybe people could come to us on Twitter and add something. It feels like Elway would certainly represent all of the disdain in the '80s and the pain for what he took, and Roethlisberger the last 20 years, obviously, although he's been vanquished now. So. I wonder who hit us up on the Twitter machine and give us a third one, and then maybe we'll have some fun with that.
I mean, I'm trying to think someone from the Ravens. Who's the defensive lineman
like
from
Ray Lewis or?
Well, like Suggs. I feel like Suggs was a big
Suggs
heel.
is a pretty good heel.
Yeah. God, Harrison, James Harrison would knock our people.
Oh, he would.
He concussed half our team over a 5-year stretch, I feel like.
Right.
And never got penalized. Never got punished for it, suspended.
No.
Nothing.
Nothing
Just
to see here.
The other way.
Nothing to see here. Yeah. Sam Weish was a good heel back in the day as a coach.
Yes, he was.
A fantastic heel. Yeah. Yeah, he's a good one. All right. Well, we'll work on that. We'll come up with a list of guys that, and maybe that'll be your Ohio Lottery Keep It Fun poll today, and we'll put it all out on the poll for you. If you're obsessing over something like football, that can be a problem. If you're obsessing over gambling, it can be dangerous. Let's do something to take your mind off that. If you want some tips on what that could be, go to keepitfunohio.com for great ways to keep gambling fun. Coming up next, your NFL.com AFC North draft grades. We will go through that. In about 15 minutes from now, the Hoff will join. You have that to look forward to, which is nice here on a Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
Yeah, sure are.
All right, you were up.
All right, the Hoff going to join us in about 10 minutes from now. NFL.com with their AFC North draft grades. Some interesting stuff here. This is from Dan Parr on NFL.com with his draft grades. Best pick, Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris, first round, 24th overall. I said this on Thursday. I don't necessarily agree with the first round pick on a running back, but I do think that he will be a monster for them. I mean, I think he's got a shot at Rookie of the Year. He's going to put up numbers. Do
we think? I mean, I think about the history of Alabama running backs in the National Football League recently, and outside of Derrick Henry, it's not a great little grouping.
It's not. He's really versatile, though. I mean, he can really catch it out of the backfield. To your point, though, he absolutely, took a beating at Bama. I mean, he carried it a lot there. So there could be some validity to that. To me, I feel like he's somebody who's going to put up numbers for them, and I don't. Long term, I wouldn't be a fan of it if I was a Steelers fan, but I think in year one, I think his impact will be pretty big.
Well, and I would say this. I mean, that's you. If you want to save Ben, so that Ben is more than a shell of himself in the final 5-6 games of the year, they didn't have a running game. It was non-existent, and it has been non-existent for the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely has. He says the most surprising pick was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to us at the 52nd overall pick, and cites that it's just one of the draft's biggest stunners that he fell, and we feel that way. Feel very good about that.
Yeah.
He was Daniel Jeremiah's number 15 overall prospect. We talked about the PFF guys had him, I think, 19. They had him 19. They had Newsome 20. We got them both. Daniel Jeremiah had JOK 15. So that is where he lands there on that front. By the way, we talked about this yesterday with JOK with the number 28, and he commented about no singles. And then I saw Greg Newsome's wearing 20. And I'm wondering, if our veterans said, hey, we got dibs on the singles. Don't give those out. I do wonder if that happened. Because there was a lot. I thought Newsome was going to wear a single digit. I thought for sure he would. But I'm wondering if our veterans said, we've got dibs on those.
Yeah, they might have.
We won't issue them. I don't know. Maybe we won't issue them.
That could be the case too. I mean, it goes back. Remember, Jedrick Wills wanted to wear 73, and Joe Thomas was fine with it, and Stefanski was not so fine with it. Said, no, you're going to be 71.
Yeah, it might be just the case where you just don't. You don't do it. You don't issue those numbers. I don't know. We'll see. But I thought that's both of the rookies that I thought would be single digits were the best chance, and now neither one will. They both look cool. They're cool in 28 and 20, but tells me we're probably going to have some jersey swapping happening here. Biggest sleeper was Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. He's a burner. He's an absolute burner. I always reject this thing of a perfect fit for Lamar Jackson. Lamar, to this point in his career, as great as he's been, he's not comfortable throwing to the outside the hash. So, he's a between the hash guy. So they've drafted to try to do that. Rashard Bateman's that. He'll be on the outside. Wallace will play a lot of slot for them, so I guess there's a little bit of that to it. But at some point you have to execute that stuff. In terms of draft grades, us an A-. I've seen us, I think Kuiper has us a B+ just because he was mad that we didn't take a defensive end.
Correct. He's the only one that's given us a B.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything other than A's other than Kuiper. And I respect the fact that he just really believes we should have taken a defensive end. He's the godfather. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, he goes with a B on their draft.
They should have addressed offensive line a little earlier with that second rounder probably. But,
yeah,
I mean, they went with a tight end, and I guess he's pretty good. We'll see.
He's good. Freiermuth, he was at Penn State. He's a big-time character kid, too. I mean, he stuck it out. Over there. There were about 1 million chances to get out of having to play at Penn State, and they had a brutal season, and he stuck it out. Bengals get a B. To me, their draft comes down to Jackson Carman because they were in position to draft tackles in the second round. I know they passed on Penei Sewell. I support that. I like Jamar Chase if I'm them over the tackle. But if Jackson Carman needs to be a dude. He's an Ohioan, chose Clemson over Ohio State. He needs to be a dude for their draft to work for me because there was Eichenberg was available in that second round. There was another tackle, one out of Bama, an offensive lineman out of Bama. They were in position to both, and they dropped back. They picked up picks, what they needed, but they need Carman to be a guy on that offensive line to really, really solidify things.
Yeah, and you didn't go tackle till late in round 4. Then you took a kicker in round 5. I don't know how that justifies getting a B. Outside of Chase, Osai could be okay, third rounder out of Texas.
Big-time recruit out of Texas. Yep.
But I mean, the other guys, I think it's truly a wait and see with them. I don't know if I would have given them a B.
Yeah, the Ravens he gives a B as well. Bateman certainly makes sense. He was Jason Owe at Penn State. He's a Dafe OA now in the league. But he's a big time player. I mean, he's a guy that when he went there, I thought, well, great. I mean, you're going to have to deal with that kid coming around the edge because he's a big time athlete for them at the end of the first round. Ben Cleveland, Brandon Stevens in the third, and then we mentioned Wallace, and a pretty good flyer, I think, on Shaun Wade
Absolutely.
in the 5th round. Because from a talent standpoint, you go back and look at the mock drafts from a year ago, and I know we're going to look at Todd's in the second hour. I'm certain that Shaun Wade was in his first round. If he wasn't, he was in the next available. He was a top 35 prospect across the board last year going in. He was exposed a little bit playing on the outside. He was dinged. He played with a turf toe. And he was dinged, but I think he's a safety and he's a slot guy in the league, and the athletic profile is pretty high for him, for them. I like their draft more than I like Cincinnati's and Pittsburgh's. I would have had Baltimore second.
I agree with that. I think that they've had a nice little off season. I question the trade, trading Orlando Brown, but they got 2 first-rounders, and they parlayed them into OA and Bateman, and if you can't get a wide receiver to come to you, why not take 2 of the top 18 wide receivers in the draft? So
draft them.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of that simple. It does speak to something we've talked about a lot, though, Gibby. All B's, we get the A, the AFC North going nowhere. Pittsburgh's going to have a big transition when they go from Ben to whoever's going to play quarterback after him. But this division is going to continue to be a monster. I think it's second behind only the NFC West, which is going to be really, really sturdy next year going into the season. We'll get the Hoff's take on all of this. He joins us coming up next. We'll break down the draft, his experience, which is a pretty cool one. Plus, he's had a lot to say on the Aaron Rodgers front, so we'll ask him about that, ask him what he's sous vide these days, ask him how life is out on the farm. Lots of fun with the Hoff coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
If your game plan for this season includes buying or selling a home, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services has you covered. Visit howardhanna.com/go Browns today. And now, what a real treat on a Friday here as we are joined by the Hoff, the great friend of the program, the great Joe Thomas, who's, by the way, buddy, can we put like Twitter aficionado? You got all sorts of things going on here today. I see you're clearing up the Aaron Rodgers things for all your Wisconsinites, getting them all on the right page on the Aaron Rodgers front, and then more importantly, this thing that you just did here with the USO in the last couple of minutes. This is remarkable with Mission Barbecue. How does this come about? This is an incredible. You stroke a check for $1 million here, man.
Yeah, it's been a busy day. Let's say that. You know, I'm not always on Twitter consistently, but what I love to use Twitter for is like when you get into these philosophical arguments, and I think to me that's kind of the root of the Aaron Rodgers debate, right? Is that are you a what-if person, or are you the person like me who wants to eliminate what-ifs from their life and go all in on whatever I'm doing? And that's kind of the argument for me with the Packers. It's like I don't want to sit there in 5 years if I'm the Packers and say, what if we would have spent all of our resources to go all in with Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest of all times, rather than sitting there in 5 years and going, well, we felt like we gave it a pretty good shot, and you know what? We were really competitive, and we were able to stay that way, so the fans were happy, and we didn't get fired. So the other side of it, that is a really special thing for me. Obviously, you guys know my work with Mission Barbecue. We've eaten it many times in the CBD studios before COVID, and one of our missions is to give back and to serve the people that serve our country. One of those is the USO and the Armed Forces members, and it just was a perfect opportunity for me to reflect back 10 years ago on my USO trip, and then fast forward 10 years in the great work that my restaurant Mission Barbecue is able to do with the USO, and to be able to cut over $1 million check directly to the USO to help servicemen and women and their families. It was really a special moment for myself, for our founder, Bill Krause, and pretty cool we could kind of put all those things together and on a busy Friday. And we got CBD. I mean, how do you beat that Friday?
What a day out of you, man. You know, it's funny. There's not one person that I've talked to, and I've talked to Laurinaitis about this, and now you, that has gone on a USO who is not completely blown away by the experience. Just completely life-changing experience. I think we lost Joe. We lost Joe.
We lost Joe.
We lost Joe. It's a Friday, Gibby.
Boy, we're going to limp to the finish line the way this is going.
It's Friday. It's a Friday, Gibby.
You gave him a life-changing experience, and it just disconnected the phone.
Said, the hell with you, Bishop. I'm out. I got things to do. I got to set people straight on the path.
I got Joe back.
Changing the life of the USO people. I don't need to answer your nonsense. Did you say we have him back?
He's back.
Got him back.
Okay. All right, Hoff, did you hear what I asked you about the USO? Or the comment, yeah, I guess, more than a question.
I was. I'm sorry. I walked into apparently a room in my house that there are no cell towers. But your point about the USO is spot on. A lot of us that have never been in the military, we've never had that service to our country, you kind of have, like, in your mind an idea of what it's like and what the sacrifice is. But when you go over there and you're able to see those men and women in country, like I was when I was in Afghanistan, and you see the commitment that they have, the sacrifice they have to make, and then when you meet with their families, through the various USO events that I was able to hear the wives talk about their husbands or overseas and in 6 months, they're trying to, even before the days of Zoom, be able to try to stay connected with their loved ones over FaceTime. And women, our armed forces do for the country, places they make, and the conditions that they have to work under, it's totally remarkable. And I think I said that in my tweet. Like, it really changed my life, and it obviously changed my perspective. I feel like I'm a big person. And after visiting, it was always important to me to give back, especially to the men and women of the armed forces. But it became like one of the big missions in my life. I had the Thomas's Troops program during my NFL career that was directly involved with the Northeast Ohio that are in the armed forces to Browns games, opportunity to kind of maybe forget about some of the things that you have to deal with on a daily basis, get to Browns Sundays, stuff that the USO does. And
yeah, we're gonna let's get a new connection with Joe on this. Let's try to get sorted out. You heard enough of it to understand how important it is to him, and that's the thing about the Hoff. I mean, he puts it where it matters most, and this is an awesome thing that he's done here with the USO. Lots that we want to get to with him on. I want to get into the draft with him. Want to get into his experience, certainly this off-season program. He illuminated me. He talked about being illuminated with the USO, and that's really kind of what you hear every time that I hear from an athlete who goes over there, that it's illuminating. He illuminated me to the way the Packers think. I had no idea the way that they went about their business until he went on that. So I look forward to getting Joe back, hopefully get a better connection with Joe, and we can continue the conversation here. Let's take a quick timeout, and then we'll reconnect with Joe and continue from there. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, one more time with the Hoff. We did get much of your answer, buddy, and it was so eloquently put on the USO and what it meant. The other thing, and you mentioned one of the words you used was how illuminating it was for you to go over there. I will tell you, and we're going to get a lot of the Brown stuff here in a second, but you have illuminated me on the thought process of the Green Bay Packers. In my mind's eye, I just assumed that they were a team that went all in. I didn't ever think of it any more than they were always contenders, and that was the way that they've gone about it. But what you have done this week on the Rodgers front has been illuminating for me of this idea of let's never be 5-11, let's never be 7-9. Let's make sure that we're always there, as opposed to let's do everything we can to deliver a Super Bowl while we have this once-in-a-generation talent.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that perspective probably comes from the fact that I, of all people, after playing with 20 quarterbacks in my NFL career, can appreciate how difficult it is to find a generational talent like an Aaron Rodgers. And so when you have that opportunity and you have those windows, you go for it, because winning a Super Bowl is so rare, as Browns fans know, that you don't know when the opportunity is going to come around again. And so for me, I would trade any day of the week all-in season versus maybe just being good with probably unlikely being able to win that Super Bowl. And I think that's what the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers situation is all about. It's a franchise that when you spend a first-round pick on a quarterback, you're drafting for the future. You're spending that capital on future players, on future years, versus spending that draft capital on the team right now and giving your team the best opportunity to win now. And so I think that's sort of the bottom line. Is like, what do fans want? Do they want a team that's all in right now to try to win the Super Bowl this year? Or do they want a team that's always looking down the future and trying to stay competitive?
My word's not yours, but if you have Favre and Rodgers for 30 years and you only win 2, to me there should be more on that front, because they're 2 of the 10 best I've ever seen do it, and I realize I don't have access to Otto Graham in person, but I mean, my goodness, those 2 guys were both as good as any in the league during certain times of their careers, and Rodgers for a long stretch of his. And to only get the 2, I think it's just certainly a different way of looking at it. I appreciate your perspective on it this week. It's been very interesting. I wanted to get your perspective on your draft experience, because when the NFL comes to your town, and rest assured this is your town, and you're here with your guys on NFL Network, and you've been here before on Thursday Night Football and those type of things, and that's certainly special. But this was really, Joe, the first time that we've seen like kind of mass crowds congregate again and everybody kind of come together, and for it to be at our town. What was the experience like for you?
Yeah, I think it was really special, because you hit the nail on the head there, right? This was really, since the pandemic, that first like little bit of sense of normalcy where it was kind of like, hey, the world is ready to open back up. The NFL is ready to get big crowds back in the fall. We're ready to kind of celebrate football and forget about the pandemic. And it was so cool seeing fans close together. Now, they were still wearing masks, but knowing that they were there, they were celebrating their team, they were celebrating the NFL, they were celebrating the prospect of a Super Bowl coming up for that franchise. And they were kind of forgetting for once, for the first time in over a year, the horrors of the COVID pandemic that we dealt with. So it was pretty cool to be able to see that up close and in person in Cleveland with all those Browns fans and all the chanting and the excitement around the draft that they had.
Joe, the moment at the start of the draft with you and Jarvis and Bernie, and then the commissioner, acknowledges all of you guys, which was awesome, and then the crowd interrupts him with chants of Bernie, Bernie. I mean, if that ain't Cleveland, I don't know what is, buddy.
I was going to say, how special is that? And for me to be able to be on stage with Bernie the legend, who I've got a chance to know him personally over the years, and just a wonderful human being, just loves the Browns so much. To be able to stand up there with him and see the love and just feel that appreciation from a fan base that probably a good majority of those people that were out there never saw Bernie play during his career, because he played 30 years ago, and to feel that love for a guy like that they weren't even part of his glory years, says a lot about the fan base, right? That says about the passion, the understanding of history, the embrace of what this franchise has been and where they've kind of gone in the interim, and then now the success that's surely ahead of us. It's pretty cool, and I think it was great to be on display, that passion, that fan base for the entire NFL to see.
You know, Hoff, you mentioned that plan and what this team is. And you know, Nathan and I talk about the 3 Ps. We've actually added a 4th. We've added poise to prepare, plan, process. We've added poise because what they've done the last 2 off seasons is pretty remarkable. And just from an NFL big picture standpoint, if you can't take the orange and brown colored glasses off for a moment, and think about this idea of what was in front of Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta and Kevin Stefanski. Last year, our offense is not good enough. Not good enough for our quarterback, not good enough to get the best out of him. Let's address it. And this year it was defense, and they swung and swung and swung. And I love what they did. Want to get your thoughts on what they did. But in terms of the plan of, hey, this offseason we're fixing the offense, this offseason we're fixing the defense.
Well, obviously it seemed to work perfectly because the draft that they had, just about every expert that has looked at it has given them an A+, because they were able to get guys on defense at positions of need that fit what they want to do on defense, which I think is a little bit rare. Because a lot of times when you're evaluating a draft, it's, hey, this was a position of need. Did we draft a player that is at that position, right? But I think what the Browns did was even deeper than that. They drafted guys like Greg Newsome, like Jock Owusu-Koramoah, that fit exactly with what Joe Woods wants to have, which is a team full of a lot of secondary players, a lot of linebackers that are very, very fast. It was all about team speed. And one of the things that was cool to me was getting an opportunity to talk to Paul DePodesta after the second day of the draft and just kind of say, hey, man, it seems like you drafted a lot of fast guys. And this is, you know, that's not me with my analyst hat on. That's just me being a fan. Like, hey, there's a lot of fast dudes that you drafted. Was that intentional? And his response about when you look at our division, you look at Lamar Jackson and the ability on defense to put a bunch of defensive speedsters out there, especially in the secondary, play nickel, play dime, put 2 linebackers in the game that don't have to come out versus base, don't have to come out versus 11 or sub offense. That was a huge thing to be able to give. That was a gift that they wanted to give to Joe Woods on defense, to be able to allow him to run his defense, to dictate to the offenses, specifically the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson in our division, and to be able to come out after that, after the weekend of the draft, feeling as good as they did. I mean, I don't know if you could have scripted it any better over the last 2 years.
No, it's been a plan executed. Now you got to get it on the field, and Coach Stefanski's been pretty adamant. Hey, my toughest job now is going to be putting this thing together. And I think one of the things fans have a misconception about, Joe, and you could speak to this, is I think fans think, hey, we won 12 games last year, let's go win 13 this year. But it really is a start from scratch every year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems that a lot of teams end up having. And players, they're the ones that fall into this trap a lot. Is like they assume that where they finished the season last year is sort of like the floor of where they start next year. And, you know, doing a little bit more work, we're going to just get a little bit better. But they forget that everybody else is getting better around them. So to just be as good as you were the year before, you got to do more work and you got to improve over who you were the season before. And so I think it's one of the things that I really respect about Kevin Stefanski as a coach. He really understands, like, you've really got to re-humble yourself and recommit to your craft and who you are as a team every single season, because everybody else in the NFL is doing that. And it's a moving target. So the old saying about in the NFL, you're either getting worse or you're getting better, is so true, especially in the offseason, because everybody is getting better. So just to maintain your place, you've got to get better. And I think the Browns, they didn't just get a little bit better, they got a lot better. And that should really pay dividends for their challenge of, can we win the AFC North? Can we get to the Super Bowl?
Joe, I don't know how you're going to make this team, some of these guys. I don't know how you get to 53.
Well, just going into the draft, we said, you know, there's so many fewer holes than we're used to on the Browns, right? I mean, on offense, you said maybe the one thing we were looking for, and Z was all over this from day one, is like, who's going to be that speedster receiver that can kind of threaten the field horizontally with the jet sweeps, with some of those orbit motions where the defense has to respect him being able to run around him, and it just opens up the seams inside in the run game. But also, who's that guy that can kind of back those safeties up, take the top off, open up things underneath for your tight ends, for your inside receivers, for some of those crossing routes. And they got that guy in Anthony Schwartz. So that was really the only hole, and they were able to get that covered in the mid-rounds. And then saying, hey, we want a speedy middle linebacker that never has to come off the field. Boom, you got one in the second round, a guy who's a lot of people had him as a mid-first round talent. And then you were able to add another talent at cornerback, a really steady long player, Greg Newsome from Northwestern. I mean, they had the dream draft in the first 3 rounds.
They really did. And it may go even beyond that. I want to ask you about James Hudson. So I know Luke Fickell a little bit, the head coach at Cincinnati, and I know how much they went through to get Hudson with Michigan in the transfer and how difficult all that was. And I know that watching their game against Georgia in the bowl game, where Cincinnati got to play Georgia in that bowl game, I wanted to say it was the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, that when Hudson was in the game, Joe, they were moving it. And he got bounced because of a targeting call, and at that point, they really couldn't anymore. So that's a pretty big impact. Yeah. He seems like that's a pretty nice ball of clay to work with there.
Oh, no doubt. And obviously I'm biased. Any player that says he watched me on YouTube to learn how to play the position, you're not getting fair analysis from me anymore. That's over. Done. But I had a chance after the Browns drafted him. He talked about his story about learning that transition from defensive tackle to offensive tackle and how he watched me on YouTube to try to learn the position a little bit. And so I called him that night and had a chance to talk to him. And he just seems like a great guy that is excited to be a Cleveland Brown. He's excited to go to work. He's excited to improve, and his ceiling is super high. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of years under his belt as an offensive lineman, but it's really fun when you flip on the tape because I'm going to be honest, like these guys after the 3rd round, I don't really know them all that well. So when we drafted him, I'm like, hey, I knew we wanted to pick an offensive lineman in the middle rounds. That's my drafting philosophy. If I'm the GM, is draft an offensive lineman in those mid-rounds, especially those smaller schools. Those are the guys that get overlooked a little bit, maybe the coaching or the training methods that allow them to maximize their potential. And so you get him in Cleveland with a guy like Bill Callahan, you're going to see rapid growth and improvement. Whereas if you draft a guy, let's say from Wisconsin, who's already had high-level coaching, high-level training, you're probably not going to be able to get him to improve quite as much. But if you draft offensive linemen in those mid-rounds every single year, especially targeting those small schools, a lot of times, maybe 1 out of 3 times, you're going to hit on somebody. Like I played with John Greco. He was a Toledo guy. He was one of our best performing starters on the offensive line for a bunch of years, and I think he was a mid-round pick by the St. Louis Rams. But I think that's really important to kind of continue to refill your roster so that when those offensive linemen do come up for new contracts, you don't always have to pay every single one of them, especially when you get on these teams that has a lot of talent. And you got to re-sign your quarterback. You got to re-sign your pass rusher. You got to re-sign your tackle. You got to re-sign some of those key positions on the field. And then you don't feel as handcuffed to have to re-sign maybe a guard or a center or a swing tackle to a huge money deal to keep them around because you've got guys in the pipeline.
Yeah, certainly do. It's an awesome draft. It's an awesome offseason. We've had 2 in a row. I can't wait to see how this all get out on a field back together. And potentially that could be at minicamp. Obviously the NFL and NFLPA, Joe, back and forth and kind of a rough time right now. How do you see this breaking here over the next month between the NFL and the NFLPA?
Honestly, I think it's just a lot of bluster from the players' union. It's the one time that they feel like they can maybe punish the teams a little bit because they have a little bit of leeway to be able to stay away and gain some type of a win in their mind. But honestly, I don't know if you win anything by not showing up in the offseason because, let's be honest, the only people that care about offseason OTAs and training is the coaches, and it's the players that benefit from it. So staying away, the coaches are going to get pissed, but the owners don't care because as long as there's not a competitive advantage from one team to the next, they don't really care. They don't look at it like a coach does who looks with his myopic view about, all right, here's my 7 guys. I need to focus on getting these guys as good as I can. So I don't know if there's really much of a win here, and I think really, if anything, it hurts teams like the Browns who have more young players, and it helps teams maybe a little bit, like a tiny bit, if you're a team of veterans that have been together a little bit longer. But in the end, I think it's a wash. And really, truthfully, the only people that it hurts are your really young players, your rookies, your first-year guys like Jed Wills, who could really benefit and who usually see a big jump to be able to spend that offseason working with the coaches, learning the schemes that maybe you didn't have time to go over in the season because it's so busy, kind of focusing in on your technique a little bit. So, I mean, I'm not a big believer in it. I hope it blows over, but I don't really know if there's any way to walk away from this with a win-win. Like, the players are just going to stay away. The NFL has their stance, and it's going to be just kind of like it was last year, and then training camp's going to start, and hopefully training camp is normal. That's really my only caveat, that I hope, I pray there's going to be fans, and it's going to look like a normal training camp, and we'll forget about this goofiness in the spring.
Yeah, it sounds like. I mean, we got news from the governor here in Ohio that he's expecting full crowds in the fall, so that was really good news. I'll get you out of here on this one, buddy. What are you sipping on these days? What's your nightcap? What do you go to? You got anything new you're trying?
You know what? It's funny. It's not my nightcap, but I would say in the last month or so, my wife and I have gotten into drinking espresso martinis like before dinner.
Wow!
I know
that's a curveball I did not see coming.
I know. And you had me on the bourbon train for a long time, and I still, I'm going to reach for some nice bourbons every now and then, but this espresso martini thing's not too bad. Like I pour a little bit of Bailey's, and I've got the fancy espresso machine like you and I have talked about, and I convinced you to come to the dark side.
Yes.
And then I'll put some Tito's vodka in there, and it's not challenging at all to make, but it's very delicious. And it gives you the spark you need when you're dealing with 4 young terrorists in the house for 12 hours, 7 days a week. So maybe it's more of a necessity than a desire.
I won't judge. All of those things are beautiful independently. I don't know why they wouldn't be great all as one, my friend.
Yes.
Appreciate you a great deal, Hoff. Thanks for your time, buddy. It's awesome talking to you again.
Hey, thanks, Beau. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I hope you have a great weekend.
We will, and no worries about that at all. The great Joe Thomas joining us. Still so much more to come. We'll take a look at McShay's draft. Big final hour here on a Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you're sick and tired of your outdated kitchen, this is the perfect time to upgrade to a new modern design. At Northeast Factory Direct, cabinets include all the upgrades: solid wood, full extension drawer glides, cushion closed drawers, and doors. The best part, the process is super simple. Make an appointment, bring in some basic measurements. The kitchen designer is going to walk you through the design. Interactive big screen, you can see exactly how it will look. Huge, huge to be able to envision it in your space. Appointment and designer free. There's no obligation, and they'll let you take it with you. How about that? They also have 0% financing available. So if you're thinking about remodeling your kitchen, go to northeastfactorydirect.com and schedule your appointment today. Gibby, we stumbled on this yesterday on the show when McShay had his way too early top 20 mock draft for next year, and we said, I wonder how he did a year ago. Now, before we get into this, let's acknowledge this. There isn't anybody. Our buddy Dane Brugler, Mike Renner at PFF, McShay, Kuiper, none of them want to be doing this now.
No,
none of them do.
They are forced to do this right now.
Yes, because we all love them. We love these mock drafts. And so I am the purpose of this exercise is certainly not to make fun if there is fun. I haven't even looked at it yet. I don't know how far off he was, how close he was. That is not the purpose, because what those guys do is they gear up. Now, they see film of the other guys too, and there's some guys Trevor Lawrence, you could have done that after his freshman year before he ever played probably at Clemson. They'd be the number one pick in this draft. But they do work on that class, the 21 class. So the 22 class, they haven't gotten into yet. They see them because they play with guys on the 21 class, but they haven't done the work. So we won't hold them to any of this. So let's start with McShay because he had his mock draft yesterday. And so his top 32 prospects, Gibby, from May of 2020. Let's take a look and see where we are here. And as I look right out of the gates, pretty good. Trevor Lawrence, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Penei Sewell, number 3.
Fair. Yeah.
I mean, he had Fields 4. He had Trey Lance, number 5. I mean,
okay.
I would not have had Trey Lance a year ago at this time.
Yeah.
I mean, he had Micah Parsons, Patrick Surtain.
Yeah.
The first one that you're kind of like, whoa.
Oh, boy.
Samuel Cosme, offensive tackle, Texas. Yeah. Did he get drafted? Do we have any idea?
I don't know. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, I at number, that was number 8 offensive tackle. Maybe he didn't
drafted by Washington.
What round?
He was drafted by Washington. Is when he was drafted, 2nd round. So bad job out of us. We were basking in the JOK love. We couldn't be bothered by what anybody else was doing.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
But again, this is May. This is a year ago.
Yeah. The next 2 of the next 3 are really interesting.
Number 9, Sean Wade, corner, Ohio State.
Okay. So this is an example. There wasn't anybody who didn't have him mocked in the 1st round. Nobody did. And had he not played a down for Ohio State, he probably would have been a 1st-round pick, at worst a 2nd-round pick. He went in the 5th round to the Ravens. He played with turf toe, played on the outside, was exposed, had bad games and big spotlight games for the Buckeyes. Can't hide from it. But he does feel like a steal to me for them in the 5th round. Jalen Waddle, 10. And then, Gibby, why don't you tell the people who he has at number 11?
The guy that's on this week's BPA. How about that?
Jeez.
There you go. Jeez. Let's go.
I'm supposed to continue to do a show with you? You get Delpit, and now you get Marvin. Never mind the fact that I still have connections down at Florida State. Like, we could have had all sorts of fun talking about California Chicken Grill, and instead,
don't worry.
You put him on the BPA.
He'll be on CBD this coming week. I have a long list for rookie minicamp. Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle, Florida State. He moves really well for his size, can penetrate quickly on the interior of the line.
Yep. This is one that when I saw this, I was, we weren't it wasn't somebody you just forgot about him, right? I mean, he played at Florida State. They had a disastrous year. It was tough off the field for them too down there, and you just forgot about him. And when I saw that we agreed to an undrafted with him, I couldn't believe he wasn't drafted. Just was shocked that he wasn't drafted. And then I remembered who he was from an athletic profile standpoint, and this is where he was on all of these lists, was a 1st-round guy. So that gives you a little bit of an idea, folks, about the type of talent. The next guy on the list is Justin Ross, and he would have been, but he's the one who didn't play because was it a heart condition? He had some sort of physical condition that kept him out. Actually, it might have been spine, now that I think about it. It might have been a spine situation that kept him out.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously not drafted. But and I
think
he's coming back to
year.
Is he coming back to Clemson?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
They're hopeful he can come back to Clemson and that he's okay.
Gregory Rousseau at 13.
Yep.
Javon Holland, safety out of Oregon, not a first-rounder, but ended up being picked.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith.
Devonta. Pretty good.
At number 15. Creed Humphrey.
He's the one who had that crazy, awesome house. Remember his parents' house?
Yeah.
The Oklahoma kid.
Not too shabby. Yeah.
30-foot ceilings in that thing?
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty good.
Number 17 is
our guy,
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, inside linebacker, Notre Dame. I love everything about his tape, he says. He's fast, he's instinctive, he's only going to get stronger as he develops.
Yeah.
17th best player.
A lot of these other guys make sense. Dylan Moses, I don't think he was drafted, the inside linebacker out of Alabama. If he was, it was way late. He was a guy who just wasn't all the way back from the knee injury. Go ahead.
How about this? I was reading about him today. He wasn't drafted.
Okay.
Not drafted at all. He was just signed by Jacksonville, an Herb. And Nick Saban equated his signing and the process that he went through to the Drew Brees debacle in Miami. That ended up with Drew Brees in New Orleans.
Medical.
Yeah. Saban equated,
thing?
Put them on the same plane.
Like the NFL guys who did his meds, because there's no way he'd throw the Bama doctors under the bus. So it must have been the NFL guys.
Correct.
Had to be.
Yeah. So
he was a dude.
Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good list. He had Kyle Pitts. He had him in the first round.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Olave, who came back. Najee Harris at 27. Yeah, Pitts was number 28. How about that? Ended up being the best offensive player in the draft.
Yeah, best offensive non-quarterback in the draft for sure. And most people think the surest thing. His mock draft, as we skip ahead to his mock draft in August, that one's pretty interesting as well. And again, off the top, you nail it because it's Trevor Lawrence, it's Jacksonville. He's got the football team taking Patrick Surtain with the second pick. Bengals with Penei Sewell. Justin Fields to Carolina at 4. Jamar Chase 5 to the Dolphins, so same spot, just different team. Micah Parsons to the Giants at 6. Bateman goes 7 to the Lions. Shaun Wade 8.
Was still high on Wade at that point.
Well, he hadn't played.
Yeah, you're right.
He hadn't played any. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that kid just got crushed by the fact that he played. He had the Bears taking a quarterback, but he had to be in Trey Lance at 14. Had us picking at 16 overall Carlos Basham, defensive end out of Wake Forest.
He had Koramoah going 13th to the Falcons.
Yeah, still nothing. Even at this point, there's nothing on Newsome in the mocks. So
Kyle Pitts was 23rd to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that had gone down?
Oh, jeez. Thankfully, no. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that. That would not have been good. It's a tough job, man. And this year more than anything, and I think if this is a great example of it, and we use McShay, but you could use anybody.
Yep.
When you're not able to have guys on campus going to games and going to facilities and talking to coaches and then going to dinner with other scouts, media guys congregating, you're not able to have a combine where everybody kind of gets on the same page. We've seen that. Think of all of the worst kept secrets that were exposed at the combine, from Herbert to Dan Jones to Kyler Murray. All of those things were abundantly clear at the combine how they were going to go. And we didn't have any of that. So it was the biggest gulf between perception and reality. Certain things like Lawrence obviously transcend that. But the biggest difference between perception and reality, and I think one thing to be I'm very curious about, if you are a guy, like let's use one of the Ohio State receivers, Chris Olave, he has going 18 in this August mock draft, even though Olave's coming back to play next year at Ohio State. If you're Chris Olave and you feel like you're a first-round pick, and let's say you lose a couple of they won't, but let's say they lose a couple of games. Do you just bail? Say I'm good?
I hope not, because I hate when
I hope
that
not
happens.
too. I hate it too, but Jamar Chase did that. Didn't hurt him. Micah Parsons didn't play at all. Didn't hurt him. Shaun Wade played and got hurt by it. I mean, Justin Fields played and got hurt by it. Justin Fields would have been the second pick in the draft last year, this year, had he not played, right? So, I don't know. I'm worried about that, and I hope it doesn't lead to it. But I do wonder if COVID opened up a bit of a Pandora's box with those guys. You remember our guy Clowney when people said, why are you playing? You're going to be the number one pick whether you play or not. And he did, and he was. But you do wonder if there will be guys that pay attention to what happened this year, especially at teams who – it's one thing if you're a team that can go win a national title, but when you're out of that mix –
what are you playing for?
What are you playing for? Yeah.
Well, you know, for a guy like Olave, even a guy like Trevor Lawrence, yeah, he was the number one pick, but you start trying to find holes in his game because he's been at such a high level. There's nowhere else.
Fields is a perfect example.
You can't keep looking like, oh, he checks all the boxes. So what do you start doing instinctively? Where if there's a flaw, where is there a flaw?
Yep.
That's why they talked about his whole competitiveness. When he had that, it blew up. Like, come on. The guy's a winner.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, what you just explained is exactly what happened with Justin Fields and why he lasted to pick 11 and wasn't the second quarterback off the board, as many people thought it would be. There's a long way to go. Some of these things, I will say this, though, and this goes from high school recruiting to college all the way to the pros and the scouting. We know these guys now better than we ever have. When you're at Alabama, you're at Ohio State, you can identify a 5-star kid, and those kids mostly work out. Nick Saban's 2017 recruiting class produced 8 first-round picks. 8 of them in one recruiting class. 8 ones. Wrap your head around that. That doesn't even make sense. A lot of programs go a decade and don't have 8 first-round picks as a program. He had 8 in one recruiting class, for crying out loud. But the same thing is true, and the reason you give Marvin Wilson what you give him is because of this list. Because his athletic profile is elite, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened at Florida State when he was there, and they went through a lot as a program. But at the heart of it, he's still that person. He's that person that a year ago McShay had number 9 overall. He's the guy who 3 years before that was the number 1 defensive tackle in the country coming out of high school. So those things don't change. That's fascinating. I'm glad we did that. That's a fun look back in history. Coming up next, an interesting conversation on Get Up. Super Bowl or NBA championship? Which is harder? We get to that coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
Latest edition of the best podcast available out now wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to youtube.com/Browns. Free agent defensive tackle Marvin Wilson joins the show. The Ibs boys will break down the 2021. Oh, I just got an email about a postponement of a. Right as I'm on the thing, I get a postponement of the.
Were we just talking about it?
You and I were just talking about it in the break that we had a Little League game scheduled for tonight. Now it's off. Yeah, I thought perhaps it would be. It's in the muck, so it'd be hard to.
Welcome to happy hour. Let's go.
Yeah, what a time to be alive. It's going to be tough breaking it to them though, because they want to play.
Of course they do.
And the anger's real. Usually, I just buy them off with like some ice cream or something.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you play spring sports in Ohio.
Yeah, in Ohio. It's you and I were talking in the break. Like if you really, and I understand it's not economically feasible everywhere, but if every time someone goes to put in turf, get as much turf as you can, man,
yes.
Because it's really the only chance you have, because it's just it's a sponge here for the entire month of April and really now into May. It's been that way. We were really lucky we had the March. That was rare. All right, this is a conversation that was had this morning on Get Up with Greeny, Kendrick Perkins, Ryan Clark, and Dan Orlovsky. The conversation of what is harder, a Super Bowl win or an NBA championship?
It's way harder to win a championship in the NBA than it is in the NFL. Okay? Because you might get a first-round bye, and then you have to win 3 games to secure a championship. In the NBA, you got to play 4 7-game series, and you got to win 16 games to secure a ring in the NBA. So I know I may ruffle some feathers, but that's what y'all brought me on for this morning. I want all the smoke.
I'm going to kill this, Perk. You know what? I'm actually happy with this topic. That wasn't what I asked. It isn't the question. But I'm more than happy to hear Ryan Clark's take on it. As a man with a Super Bowl ring, RC, what is your reaction? Do you believe it is harder to win an NBA championship than it is to win a Super Bowl?
No, Kendrick is out of his mind. The best team always wins the championship in basketball. That's why they play 7 games, right? So when you're playing football, it's one day, right? You have to be the better team that day for 60 minutes. It doesn't matter what you've done all season. If something goes wrong early, if somebody is banged up, then you're out of there, right? You can't have a team with Deladova and get to the championship in football. That's not the way that it works. You have to show up. You have to show up because he was on LeBron's team. You have to show up every single day in the playoffs and play 60 minutes and win. When you look at the NBA championships, there are so many times when the playoffs start, we can call it. These will be the 2 teams in the championships. These will be the 2 teams in the finals. Wild card teams get to the Super Bowl in NFL. Wild card teams, number 8 seeds, 7 seeds, 6 seeds, they don't get to the championship in the NBA because you know what y'all do? Y'all say we're going to play it out really long and we're going to make it 7 games. So if LeBron James is a little off, we can still have him in the championship so we can have ratings. That don't happen. Tom Brady ain't making it all the time, even though he made it 9 of them, right? Aaron Rodgers ain't making it all the time. He's only been once. But when you look at the LeBrons and the Stephs and the KDs, we see them all the time because of that setup, Perk. Don't you ever in your life say it's harder to win an NBA championship than a Super Bowl.
And Ryan, listen, let me tell you why you're 100% wrong, okay? When you're in the 7-game series and you have to beat a team 4 times out of 7, guess what ends up happening? It's harder because teams make adjustments. So you have to see a team just say a series goes 7 games. By the time you get to that 7th game, every player, every opponent, every coach knows everybody's tendencies, and you to battle through where they're forcing you to your weaknesses. So I get what you're saying, and you could play 60 minutes, but imagine having to win 4 games out of 7. 4 games, beating the team 4 times out of 7, way harder than winning 1 game. And Dan, I know you got a lot the scowl on your face. You got your Miami South Beach look going on. Miami Vice. Go ahead and do what you do.
You're up.
What you do.
So there's a lot there. The one thing that I would say to Perk's last point of, a 7-game series is grueling. There's no question. I mean, we've been the beneficiary of that, obviously, here. But the teams are finite in many instances. and barring injury, and those things happen, but it's the same group. In other words, to Ryan Clark's point, the best teams get there. The NBA produces the most justifiable champion year in and year out because of the fact that it's a best of 7 4 times to do it. So the best teams win unless there's injuries or something fluky happens from that standpoint. As long as everybody is healthy, the best teams, the 1 seed in the West and the 1 seed in the East, or the team that's got clearly the best team, the best players, they get there. Give me the last fluky NBA champion. It might have been that there was a Pistons one in the mid-2000s that beat the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq and Karl Malone and those guys, but that Lakers team had a ton of injuries to it. So there's a couple, but it's really rare. Usually the best team wins it. So to me, it's clearly the Super Bowl is much, much harder because of how fluky it can be. The best team doesn't necessarily win the Super Bowl.
Go back to the season prior to this one, and Tennessee beating Baltimore. Baltimore was the number 1 seed. Took them out. Like, how often do you see that in the NBA, unless it's maybe the Eastern Conference Finals? Like when it's a 1 versus a 2 seed. The problem is in the NBA, I will give Kendrick Perkins this. Like, the first round takes 40 days, but you're playing 7 days, potentially. Like, you could be done in 4 games, and then you've got like a week off if the other team has to go 6 or 7 games. So there's so many days off that I just don't. The NFL, you get 1 game. 1 game. Like, I would love to see an NBA where it's just 1 game.
Single elimination?
Play every week?
Man. No, yeah. I mean, I think that's it. And the other thing I would say that they didn't really get into there in the conversation, by the way, I love how Greeny said it. I like this conversation even though it's not the question I asked. I thought that's great.
That's a Kendrick Perkins starting something.
That's so great. The other thing is in the NBA, and this to me would be the evolution of the conversation. It is next to impossible to be a small market team and win in the NBA. LeBron James was born in Akron, Ohio. If he was not, we would not have. Period.
Nope, we'd still be looking.
It's that simple. It's that simple. You look at how hard it is. Even if you think about what the Pistons did with the bad boy Pistons and even that Pistons team that won it in the early 2000s, that was all before the AAUification of the NBA. That was all before, hey, let's all get together and play together. Let's go short-term contracts. Let's all go play for Brooklyn and let's all be transient. I mean, the idea is so foreign to think that LeBron James has played, for 3 NBA franchises. Twice for us. 4 different stints, 3 LeBron James? Magic Johnson played for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Jordan played for the Bulls and the Wizards at the end because it was ownership. But, that just didn't happen. You just played for the team. So now, especially, the Lakers right now, they will go from when LeBron James is done, it'll be Anthony Davis and maybe it's Zion Williamson or Luka Doncic. But it'll just continue to be that way. And there's 5 or 6 franchises in the league that are always going to get at bats. I mean, you think about how hard it is. Look how easy, I say easy with all due respect. The NFL is set up for, if you are bad, you can draft at the top of drafts, and if you're smart, you can be good quick. We're a great example of it. Now, if you're smart, it's a big part of it.
Sure.
You got to have really smart guys. But if you're smart, you can be good quick. The Jacksonville Jaguars were dreadful last year. Now they have Trevor Lawrence. Like that. That type of impact does not happen in the NBA. You're drafting 18-year-olds versus 22-year-olds. It's so much harder in the NFL. The parity, the whole thing is set up for everybody to be 8-8.
Yeah, and you go back, if you look through, this would be a fun exercise. If you look through the NBA at all the mid-market teams that were borderline dynasties that got broken up because guys wanted to go play in L.A. or, think about Orlando with Penny and Shaq. Think about, the Cavs with LeBron. Think about some of these mid-market teams that
Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Look at some of those Indiana Pacers teams that were coming along that eventually got broken up. Yeah, it's just not. In the NFL, if you're smart and you draft right, you keep your guys. In the NFL, Green Bay is every bit as relevant as Dallas. That does not happen in any other sport in this country.
Nope.
In the world, for that matter. There's no place else that happens. The NFL, because of the complete revenue share and the cap, allows for anybody smart to win. And you can be smart in Green Bay or Cleveland or Pittsburgh. You don't have to be in New York. You do not have to be in Dallas. You do not have to be a marquee franchise. There's nothing else like that. There's nothing else like it.
And it doesn't matter how much money your owner has because everybody plays with the same cap.
No.
Like
everybody plays by the same rules.
Yep.
Yeah. So, no, I think that's it. It's fun. I'm glad Perk brought that up. That was good. You're going to get smarter coming up next. Our linebacker coach, Jason Tarver, with a one-on-one conversation with the Z. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
I haven't talked to Freeman in forever, but I can't even imagine, does he even know where to begin down there? I don't even know what he's in charge of with them. Are you on the injured list? We can help you get back in the game. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk & Elk, a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Boy, you want to talk about a crowded room. That linebacker room certainly would apply to that. Our good buddy, the great Z, Nathan Zegura, going one-on-one with the man in charge of the room, our linebacker coach, Jason Tarver. Let's have a listen.
Very happy now to be joined.
You guys are down.
Coach Jason Tarver. And, Coach, what a draft weekend for you. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah coming to the Browns in the second round. Tony Fields, the linebacker from West Virginia, added later in the fifth round. And now, boy, you've got a lot of talent in that room. But let's start with JOK. Let's go back to draft night on that Friday night. I'm not sure a lot of people thought this was possible. And as soon as you guys know, we heard the story, you're running to the whiteboard with Coach Stefanski and Coach Woods. What was kind of that moment like when you knew that somebody maybe you thought was coming to you at pick 26 is now coming to you at pick 52?
Well, the biggest thing we're excited about is all of our people in our room and their mindset, you know, and what you like about JOK is how he plays. He plays fast, he plays physical, and he can do a lot of things. So we got to make sure we're getting him in the right spots, and it's fun to think about the things that we can do schematically.
So, like, what do you do on the whiteboard? You run up there. What is take the listeners through that? What were you guys doing?
Well, the biggest thing is to find his spots so that he can have a matchup for success. So it's about using him in what looks like a lot of positions, but it's really easier for him to learn. And so that's what we were working on is, okay, here he is. Now, what could the packages be, but how do we make it the same for him, same as? And we do that in our defense anyway. So that's an exciting chore for us to do over the next few months here.
I can see the smile on your face. I know you are excited about it. When you watched his tape, what was it that jumped out to you that said this guy, you know, is going to be a real player, especially in this defense?
Well, he's good at coverage in space. He's good at blitzing, and he's good at playing on the edges. And he really does use his arm length. He has long arms for his body, and that's one of the things that's key at linebackers, keeping people away from you, regardless of what you want to make of how much they weigh. You got to be able to use your hands. It's the number one thing. It's the only sign in the office. It's right back up there. I don't think
there it is.
But pointing the wrong way. There it is over there. But it's the only sign in the office. You got to be able to use your hands. And Jeremiah does that. He keeps people away from him, but he can run, and he likes contact, and he likes when he's matched up one-on-one on people, but he also likes when he's in zone coverage, and that's what we do.
So I've read a lot, and I actually got a question from some of our listeners about it, and I did my best to explain it based on what I knew, but I think it'll be much better to come from you. Overhang linebacker, that's a term that we're hearing a lot more. Is that the role? It's, you know, could be the will, we call it will, overhang linebacker. What does that mean exactly, and what does that mean in our defense?
Well, all three of our linebackers, we want them to have length, speed, and football intelligence. That's what we want. And Jeremiah has arm length, but he definitely has speed. And he's shown a good level of football intelligence by learning multiple positions at the college level. So in our defense, we can use our linebackers interchangeably, but our Sam and our Will are a little bit more on the edges than in the middle, and our Mike's more in the middle, hence the name Mike. Jeremiah overhang, I guess, now. Jeremiah is very well suited in our scheme to play on the edges of the defense, on, off the ball, in space, tucked in the box. He's going to do all that. Like we said, we have ways to make it easy.
Was there anything in the pre-draft process, maybe from one of your interviews with him, that really struck you, that made you say, forget the tape, just as a human, as a player, that this is somebody I want in my room? Because when we interviewed him the night of the draft, the first thing he said to us was, you know, those three pillars, smart, tough, and accountable. I said, okay, all right, they've gotten through to you. Clearly, the messages has gotten there. But is there anything you remember about him, the person, from this process?
Yeah, he has great energy and wants to be really good. And, I mean, just like you said, he's taking notes on what we're saying. He did that throughout the process. So that's a good thing. Maybe that's the Notre Dame education. But he is really excited about being good. Now, there's always a process for young players coming into the league, you know, but his energy, how he plays, he learns from mistakes. Those are things that excite him.
Absolutely, and I know he is certainly excited to be here, and I know you're excited to get him on the field, and we'll kind of circle back there and take a look at that room overall in a second, but I also want to talk about Tony Fields, a tackling machine at Arizona, tackling machine at West Virginia, similar size to JOK in terms, you know, a little bit on the lighter side, but again, seems to be very comfortable in space, and a guy who I think immediately can make an impact on teams, but also fits what you guys were talking about with being able to be comfortable and play in space.
Tony has played, you know, he's a 4-year starter. He's played a lot of football, and that's a credit to him at 2 different schools. He's played in the middle and on the edges. So again, it's another position flexible linebacker that we've added to our room that we're excited about. And he's got great pace. He's got a feel for what's happening to him and how to move around blockers or strike blockers and make plays. His career tackle numbers are up there. Yep. So we're excited about his production, and we're excited about him coming in and joining the room and seeing where he can fit in.
So let's talk about that room, because it's crowded now. It's a crowded room. The last time that you and I talked, you know, we went through and we're like, okay, you got Anthony Walker, you got Jacob, you got Sione, you got Mack, you got Malcolm Smith back, Elijah Lee back. That's 6. That's typically what the linebacker room would be. You have, you know, Lee's the special teams guy. Malcolm's the cover guy. Sione's been great against the run, looking to improve his coverage. Mack is looking to improve in his 3rd year. Jacob showed those big flashes. And, of course, we've all seen what Anthony Walker Jr. did at Indy. And so you could have said, we're good right there. But now you add in JOK, you add in Tony Fields, a lot of competition. Let's just start from the top level with those 8 guys. And I know Montrell Meander as well, so 9 guys. Who fits in your mind? Who are, you know, your Wills, your Mikes, your Sams, as you kind of see it right now?
Well, you went through a lot of what they can do. So we're excited about it. It is great competition in the room. The guys have been outstanding on our Zoom meeting, learning and competing to get questions right. We have some things going on, some competitions to see who can master the scheme. That's one of our off-season goals, is to master the scheme and the techniques. And the technique goes right with our scheme. So we're working on that. We will use them all. We obviously like to keep them all, but sometimes you can't. And you'll see them everywhere. I mean, you ran through a little bit what they can do. And that's what's exciting, is the best thing to be able to do as a coach is allow your guys to do and help them do what they can do. Some of them being real physical in the run game, others playing at times in some of our situational packages where they got to cover somebody or blitz. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. The 2 young men, they're going to have to battle to see the field. So, I mean, yeah, they get drafted, but they're going to have to fight. And that's what good teams have, competition. And good teams have people who we can use for their best thing. So, and we're excited to see. I mean, the whole thing's going to play out, and we'll see where it goes. We said it a year ago, and every year is completely different. We have to build our identity from scratch. But we needed everybody. We needed every one of them last year, multiple times. So we need everybody, and that's how it's going to be.
Absolutely. Just from the Mike standpoint, is that Anthony Walker Jr. and Jacob Phillips that you see more in the middle of this defense?
Yeah, and those 2 have played more Mike in their career, and Malcolm Smith can play it as well. And then we'll see how the 2 younger guys, the 2 draft picks, do with handling the calls and things like that. So we know that you can't have enough Mike linebackers. So.
Certainly an important position in any defense, and I know in ours is
30.
Coach, thank you so much for the time. Excited to see your room get together and get all this talent out there on the field. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I love that they want to just get to work right away. I know that's what you've preached since day one that you got here, and Kevin Stefanski, day one you guys got here. So this is an exciting time, and excited to see you get these guys on the grass and make it happen.
Good to talk to you as always. Oh, yeah. Excited for meetings today, too. One day at a time, baby.
You're up.
That's good stuff with Coach and Z there. It's a crowded room. It's a really crowded room. And when you have a defensive coordinator that's going to play three safeties a lot and wants to play 400 plays in dime, it's all the more difficult. If I were one of these guys, and I mean, unfortunately, they're guys who have played and have done a really nice job for us and are proven NFL guys, I would just find myself next to Coach Preef and say, what do you need, buddy? What do you need? What do you need me chasing down? Because that's going to be the ticket to the roster, I think, in this room, because we're not going to carry as many as we've carried in previous years, I don't think.
No, I think we can kind of envision who the impact guys, who the starters are going to be, but their backups, it's a crapshoot. Like, pull out the dartboard. I mean, that's how talented each of those rooms have gotten, and especially at linebacker. I mean, you're talking 9, almost 10 linebackers for 2 or 3 spots. I mean, depends how many times you're going to play 3 linebackers, or you're going to play 2 linebackers and play 3 safeties. Like,
boy, you think I'm just writing it down right now.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're going to play 400 snaps and if you're going to play 400 snaps in dime, which is what Joe Wood said, that's, kind of alluded that that's where he was comfortable. How many of these guys are you going to keep? You have to feel like, I mean, with everything we've heard about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, that's a dude who's going to be out there, that he's going to be out there flying around, that he fits the scheme perfectly. It's just a matter of he get acclimated. We know they love Jacob Phillips. They went and got Walker. So, those 3 locks, they like Fields' ability to run, but he's a pick this year. I thought Sione came a long ways last year.
I think they like him a lot, too.
Yeah, I mean, he's a heat-sinking missile. And then you got Mack, who's just been an awesome Brown for 2 years, but it's just going to be really difficult putting this thing together. It is. These are good problems to have, but they're someone's not going to make this team who's been an NFL contributor. I think that seems like a pretty decent chance of that.
Well, and I mean, more and more, especially in the defensive back room and in the linebacker room, who can play special teams at an elite level, not just a good level, but at an elite level, because that will put you over the top.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It really is that simple, and that'll be the guys that do that will be the ones who make this team, and then this defense is just going to be one that flies and hits. It's just going to be a group that flies and hits and covers a lot of grass. It's going to be awesome to see it all come together and see it out on the grass here in about a month at mandatory minicamp. Still so much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Well, it all gets real next week, doesn't it, Gibby? I know you're on vacation and Zeke comes back, but you'll be back middle of the week with schedule release day, Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, yep. I'll be back probably halfway during the show. But
okay.
Mr. Baco will be here to take you to the promised
land. The illustrious Baco.
Yes.
So that'll be exclusive to Browns Live that night, right? I remember when Z was saying that night will be the first real look at it. Will be
correct.
That night.
I think they get I think the teams get a 30-minute head start over everybody else.
That's a pretty big gift for the NFL, which has a network.
Big gift. I think that's what it is. I could be totally wrong on that, but
I think you're right.
I think so.
I think you're right. I think I remember Paul and Baco talking about that there, and maybe Drew too, that there would be, a little bit of a leap.
1 minute.
But that'll be cool next week. Rookie minicamp after that, and the machine just keeps on moving, doesn't it? Hey, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. The lovely blonde for raising. She is the mother of dragons, raising 3 little animals, and does a pretty damn good job. So good job out of her and to all the moms out there, Gibby.
Amen. Especially to my wife, my mother, my mother-in-law, my sister. Shout out to all 4 of you, because I don't know how the hell you deal with me and everybody else.
I think they know sometimes how they deal with it.
True.
It's a lot to take in. Have a great weekend, everybody.